Hey guys, what's up, and welcome to my deck profile for my Tachikaze Cardfight Vanguard deck. Now, if you like to just go along the bottom and click in the annotation below, it will take you to my example duel where I just show you each one of my cards actually in a duel. Well, there'll be no one there, but we just give you a feel for each of the effects as they go along. And it'll just that's basically a how-to for basic gameplay. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing now is going over each one of the cards in my deck and explaining their effects as easily as I can for you guys. Okay, so I will start off with the grade zeros. Okay, so I'm running. My main intention is running one copy of Dragon Egg, but the reason I got two is because I was bidding for them fast on eBay. But I will be replacing one of them with a grade 3 known as Tyrant Megarex, which I will put a link to in the description below for you guys just to check that one out. So in essence there will be only one of them in the actual deck. Next, running 3 copies of Ironclad Dragon Shieldon. I'm running 3 of him because he's a good 10,000 shield, which is a fairly good average defense. A lot of this, I'll go into a lot more detail in this as I explain, as I go through the how to play video. That way you can actually see how all the effects work and get a feel for the actual game. So 4 copies of my heal trigger. They just get rid of damage. 4 copies of my stand trigger. Stand, basically, when a monster attacks, basically you just turn it to what would be defense position in Yu-Gi-Oh! And what stand is, it lets you just turn it back up so it can attack again. 4 copies of my critical trigger. Now, how damage is dealt in this game is if the power level, which is that number just there, if that's equal to or higher than the attack of the targeted monster, then the attack successfully goes through. And the amount of the amount of criticals just there, it's 1 on each card, but that's how much damage is dealt to your opponent. And what the critical trigger allows you to do is increase that number by 1, so the attack will do 2 critical instead and deal 2 damage. And to finish off the grade zeros, 4 copies of my draw trigger. The triggers are activated whenever I would take damage or declare an attack. The reason for such is because of the 5,000 point boost each one of them actually gives. Because that way you can power up your monsters before the actual battle takes place. Okay, that pretty much sums up my grade zeros. Now I'm on to the grade 1s. And in this one we're running 4 copies of Sonic Noah. Now, about 50% of this deck actually has effects, but when I do show you the cards that actually have effects, they're rather good. The thing with Tachikaze decks is the fact that they, I wouldn't say sacrifice your cards, I'd say they more rely on the death of each other. That way they can power each other up. He's 8,000 attack, 5,000 power, 5,000 defense, which is a fairly average grade 1. 4 copies of the Savage Warrior. Now, this card has a good effect. Whenever a Tachikaze monster goes to the drop zone, or what would be known as the graveyard in Yu-Gi-Oh!, this card gains 1,000 power for every card sent there. And a lot of effects require these cards to go to the grave. 3 copies of Raging Dragon Sparksaurus. What this card does is when it's sent to the drop zone, I can choose one card in my hand, discard it, and then special summon from my deck another Raging Dragon Sparksaurus. And to finish off the grey ones, we are running 2 copies of Winged Dragon Skyptero. Now what this card does is, this card's effect can only be activated if I've taken damage. It's demonstrated by that little purple symbol just there. So to activate this effect, all I need to do is just literally flip over my damage. How damage is done is when I would take damage, I take the top card of my deck, flip it over, and that's my damage. And how I activate this effect is I take that damage, and just flip that over. Simple stuff. So I have to flip that one over, and if it's sent from the rear Vanguard zone to my graveyard, and I have a Tachikaze Vanguard, I can discard the card, and if I do, this card is added from the drop zone to my hand. I say again, I'll go over all these effects in a bit more detail over the dual video practice thingamabob. Okay, now we're on to the grade 2s. We are running 3 copies of Cannon Fire Dragon Cannon Gear. Now this card is an insanely powerful grade 2, 11,000 power. His effect is whenever he's put into the rear Vanguard zone or the Vanguard zone, I have to choose one of my rear Vanguards and retire it. Basically just put it into the drop zone. If this card is the Vanguard, when it's boosted by another Tachikaze monster, it will gain an extra 2,000 power. Boosting I will go over during the actual video. Don't worry, you don't need to worry about any of that yet. Okay, we are running next 3 copies of Assault Dragon Blightops. Blightops is very useful. I just counterblast 1, which is just flip over 1 damage. That's what it's called, counterblasting. So I just flip over 1 damage, and when this card is sent from the rear Vanguard zone to my drop zone, I can search my deck and add one Ironclad Dragon and Shieldon from my deck to my hand, and then shuffle my deck. He's a very good card because he lets me get a 10,000 shield to my hand, which is always good. Next, we're running 2 copies of Vacuum Mammoth. When another Tachikaze monster is placed on the rear Vanguard zone, I can put 1 soul into my Vanguard. This effect can only be activated if this card is the Vanguard. Now how our soul works is I take the top card of my deck and just put it underneath my Vanguard. That's how soul works. Next, 2 copies of the Savage Destroyer. This effect is essentially the same as Savage Warrior. When the Tachikaze monster is sent from my rear Vanguard zone to the drop zone, he gains 1,000 attack points, 1,000 damage. Attack points, Yu-Gi-Oh on the brain here. And to finish off the grade 2s, 2 copies of Ravenous Dragon Megarex. No effect, but a 10,000 power, grade 2. These cards, in essence, are incredibly strong. Okay. And to finish off the deck, the grade 3s. For these grades, we are running 2 copies of the Chaos Dragon Dinochaos. How this card works is its effect activates in my hand. If I have a Tachikaze Vanguard, and I have and if I have at least 2 rear guards that are also Tachikaze, I can retire them and special summon and ride my Vanguard. Riding is essentially putting. Okay. So this card's my Vanguard. Riding it is simply that. So if I have a grade 2 and at least another 2 other Tachikaze monsters, send those 2 to the drop zone, ride him in the same turn. And by that, I mean, I start off with that one. So that's my starting field, okay? Vanguard, rear Vanguards. What I would do is I would ride, effect in my hand, send to the drop zone, ride again. Very good effect. Legit. Riding can only be done once per turn, but summoning of other monsters can be done as many times as you have the space to. 6 monsters in general. This card just lets me just skip over the waiting of another turn, which is incredibly handy. And to finish off the grade 3s, we are running 2 copies of Raging Dragon Blastsaurus. Now his effect is similar to Sparksaurus. When he's in the rear Vanguard zone, if he's sent to the drop zone, discard one card, choose one card from my hand, discard it, and then special summon another one from my deck into the rear Vanguard zone. So these cards just keep making each other come out. Very, very useful. Okay, now, what I'm going to be quickly going over for you guys is what's underneath the grades of the actual cards. Start from the bottom. Okay, so with the grade 0, those little arrows, that's just essentially boost. So if this card's my rear Vanguard, and that's my actual Vanguard, turn him to defense, which is boosting the Vanguard. Then I'll attack with him, and his 5,000 power will be added on to his 5,000 power. So his attack, in essence, will be 10,000. That's how boosting works. Boosting can only be done by grade 1s and grade 0s in the rear Vanguard zone. Grade 2s, that little symbol there, that basically means intercept. So if I have a grade 3 and 2 grade 2s, let's find another one. There we go. So say my opponent attacks with a 20,000 power monster, and this card is the only card in my hand. His shield is 10,000. So what I would do is I would play the 10,000 and then intercept with 2 5,000s to make the 20,000 shield. But the attack would still go through at that point because it's equal to, so I would need to have at least another 5,000 in my hand to block the attack. That's basically how intercepting works. They can go from your rear Vanguard zone to help you block the attack. Now for grade 3s. This little twisted symbol, that means twin drive. So whenever you would attack your opponent, the grade 2, you'd only with the grade 2, they will when the grade 2 attacks, you draw one card, reveal it. What you're looking for is the trigger, and if there is anything, you don't get anything. But how the twin drive works is you reveal the top 2 cards. See? You could add the 5,000 power onto him, nothing from him, but you still get to be able to draw another card. So there's a brief overview of the Tachikaze monsters. Please click the link at the bottom just to see how they actually work in action. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you'll watch my other videos. See you guys later.